Hi everyone. You all look lovely out there. Welcome everyone, and thank you all for joining us here today to honor my grandmother. We would like to start with Cindy leading us in prayer. Welcome.
Our Father, which art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done in earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our debts as we forgive our debtors. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, and the power, and the glory, forever. Amen.
Thank you. Thank you, Cindy. I know that was really special for you and for her, and for a lot of us here. Okay. Born in Hermosa Beach on November 14th, 1946, was Jerilyn Wilcox. But most of us know her as the Juge. As anyone knows in this family, once someone is given a nickname, it sticks with us. It was little Ricky who couldn't get Jerry out clearly, so she became Jugie, and from there we got the Juge. As a young girl, she lived in many cities before she was even 20 years old. For example, Redondo Beach, Idlewild, Indio, and Palm Desert, to name a few. In her younger years, she was a lifeguard, a Girl Scout, and a Job's daughter. One of her treasured times was her scout trip to Europe. The girls took a bus across the U.S., staying in military housing. Once they arrived at the East Coast, they took what was called Student Steamer, a boat that simply transported students, not a luxury ship. When they arrived, they stayed in youth hostels. It was very primitive traveling, but as many of us have heard the stories, it was a very cherished trip. Excuse me. It was also said on their way home in the U.S., their bus broke down and all the girls missed their first day of their senior year. Also, in her youth, she and her family took many road trips. Many summers were spent at Shasta Lake. There, she was an avid water skier. She even could ski on just one ski. The family traveled to Shasta Lake so often, they had a saying that they would always say, "Has to be Shasta." Other trips included a family reunion in Denver, Colorado, and trips to Mexico. The Juge had many girlfriends, but one in particular stands out the most. Since middle school, for the two girls, Margaret Bonilla has been a true and dear friend. 65 years of friendship, to be exact. See, Jerry's dad was a sheriff at the sheriff's station that was across the street to Francis Cafe that Margaret's parents owned. The two families bonded, and the Juge and Mar found they were in the same class year at school. Through the years, both families grew as close as ever, and to this day consider each other family. It was November of '66 when she married, then started a family and a move to Hemet. Here, for many years, she raised Kelly and Brandon. Hi, Mom. Worked as a travel agent, where she was able to travel yet again to Europe and take many cruises, and became involved yet again in Job's Daughters, where she served on the council and became guardian of Hemet's Bethel. Then, a big change for the family in 91, a move to Folsom, California. There, she retired from Sprint as a TTY operator, helping the deaf and the hearing communicate over the telephone. There were now grandchildren: myself, Evan, Johnny, Ethan, Bradley, and even Jackson and Haley, that she just adored being with. All right. With that, I just want to share a quick story, and then I'd like to open it up to anyone who would also like to share. I'll start with one of mine. My grandma meant the world to me. Sorry. We spent lots of time together as I was her caretaker for quite a few months. And we laughed, we cried, and it seemed that no matter what I came to her with, she always had some joke to crack or some great advice to give, especially on dating. Lots of what nots to do. But one in particular thing that we used to do is we would sit late at night when I would get home from work, and I would bring her a sugar-free hot chocolate and a muffin top from Dutch Bros, because that's where I worked at the time. And we would watch crime shows for hours. Law and Order, 48 Hours, the Cops one. We watched them for so long. And then she would have to wake me up from the recliner to get me to bed. All right, that's what I'll share for now. Would anyone like to come up and share a story? Otherwise, I have more stories. Do you have one?
Do you want a break, or do you want to keep going?
No, please. Please. Alrighty. Thank you again, everyone.
I didn't know till today that she was a Job's daughter, and I was too. So, lots of things good. Haven't known Jerry, as I'll call her, as long as many of you, but cherish her and her love for everyone. It's just so obvious. The first thing you meet her, that's the first thing you notice. I'd like to share something. You're all familiar probably with the 23rd Psalm. This is from the Christian Science textbook version. I know it was very dear to her, and to me it represents her. Divine love is my shepherd. I shall not want. Love maketh me to lie down in green pastures. Love leadeth me beside the still waters. Love restoreth my soul, spiritual sense. Love leadeth me in the paths of righteousness for his name's sake. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for love is with me. Love's rod and love's staff, they comfort me. Love prepareth a table before me in the presence of mine enemies. Love anointeth my head with oil, my cup runneth over. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I will dwell in the house, the consciousness of love forever. And I wouldn't have recognized you. You were so tiny last time.
Thank you so much. That was beautiful. And I know that would have meant a lot to her as well. Everyone start getting your courage up, because I want to hear more. I will share another story to get us going some more. So when I was her caretaker, when she was living with me and my mom and my brother, she was having some trouble with her fingers, like her nerves, so she couldn't quite, grab her pills. So she was dropping them all the time. And we had dogs, so we were worried, like, oh gosh, dogs are gonna get the pills. So I bought her a plastic shot glass. And she thought that was the most brilliant idea that I had ever had. She goes, oh my gosh, a shot glass for my medicine? And she never dropped another pill, just saying. All right, I'm opening it back up to anyone. Perfect, come on up, sir, thank you.
Virginia Lou and Jackie and Jerry were always very special to me and my family. When I was in college and going with my now husband, Jim, after school, we would go home to my house and study and do our homework. And while we were there one day, Jim Lou came over with Jackie and Jerry. And Jerry was, I would say, between 3 and 4 years old. And she took an attachment to Jim. And of course, Jim loved little kids, so he played with her. And then it was time for him to go home. And he said he had to go home and fix dinner. And Jerry wanted to go home with him. So she did. He took her home to his home, which was San Diego State College Pi Kappa Alpha fraternity house. And the boys came out and greeted her and talked to her. So she went into the kitchen, and Jimmy pulled up a stool so she could stand up at the kitchen counter and help him fix dinner. So they got dinner finished, and they served it on the table. She sat at the head of the table while the fraternity brothers came in and sat down, and Jimmy reminded them to mind their language while they were at the table. And after they were finished, and she was a very happy and very tired little girl, and they went back to my house.
Thank you so much for sharing that. Okay. Again, I'm sending you all the courage. One memory I did want to share with you all is my last moments with my grandma. I had work, and I had planned on going to see her in the hospital after work, which wasn't until much later in the evening. Something in my gut told me, you need to go, and you need to bring her Christmas gift to her now. Whatever you believe in, God, the universe, something divine, something higher than us, guided me to that. And so sure enough, I was running a little tight on time, but I made sure that I went to see her, and I brought her a nice pillow and a nice big warm fuzzy blanket that matched, of course. And we talked just like just like she was sitting in her chair at Jackie's house, just like we used to. And I got to tell her about my new jobs and my school and what's going on in my life. And she was just so bright and so happy to hear and just happy for me to be there. And I felt the same, just happy to be there. And she actually was able to tell me exactly where her contact case was in the bathroom. She said, "Oh, please go get it for me." She said, "In the drawer on the left and in the back behind this." Oh, gosh. She couldn't remember a whole lot, but she remembered that. And then I told her, I said, "Hey, you know, one of your best friends, Cindy, she's coming. She's coming to see you soon." She said, "I know." I said, "Well, girl, your hair's a mess." And she said, "Is it really?" And I said, "Yeah. Can I brush it for you?" And the last thing I did before I left, which would have been the last time I saw my grandma, was I got to brush her hair and hold her hand and tell her how beautiful she looked. Okay. You're welcome. I know that one's not quite as funny, but but I thought I would share that because I haven't had a lot of last moments with a lot of people, and I feel so grateful that I got one with her. Okay. Anyone? Do you want to go? Okay. My brother wants to speak.
Okay. I'm up here because I love my grandma and I want to talk about her. But I'm trying to prove a point to someone that I can stand here and talk to all of you about my lovely grandma. When I was younger, even now, I have a lot of problems with my head and just how I work. So I didn't really make too many friends when I was younger, and I knew that I could rely on Chooch because she looked after me a lot. And one of the funnier things is not a lot of people say that their grandma plays video games with them. She reminded me a lot that one of the games we played, she wasn't doing too good, and I said, maybe we should play something else. But it's just so amazing that I had such an amazing grandmother to look out for me and to play with me, and I really appreciate what she has done for me and what she has given me and what she's given all of you.
Thank you, Evan. That was lovely. Okay. Does anyone else? I was waiting. Miss Margaret. Here she comes. I'm so excited to hear this story.
It's okay.
It'll tilt down if you pull it down.
My name is Margaret, and Jerry and I met in the 7th grade, and we started hanging out in the 8th grade, and when we both became Job's daughters, we were spending a lot of time together on Monday nights at meetings, and through high school we ran in different groups, but there was always time for us to spend time together on our own. I'll never forget the trip to Colorado with 1956 Chevrolet station wagon, no air conditioning. And Jerry and Jackie and I sat in the back, and so we were freshmen going on sophomore, and so we were still picky, and we'd fight, and then Jerry and I would get mad at Jackie and oust her, and then Jerry and I would fight, so Jackie and I would oust her. But Jerry was the person who introduced me to the name Gloria Steinem and Women's Lib. I'd never heard of that. She introduced us to Rummy Cube, and she said that Jackie was the best championship Rummy Cube player ever. And when my babies were born, she introduced us to that 33 album Music Machine. And we played that over and over, and Maureen and Michael memorized all the songs. And then when my grandkids came along, we had to find a CD of Music Machine. And when Kelly was born, 1969, July something or other, well, poor Neil Armstrong was in the shadow because Jerry and I spent hours on the phone. I said, Jerry, did it hurt? How did it go? How did you feel? What does she look like? And she was trying to calm me down. I just remember we have so much history. I remember we both came out of our second period going to recess when we'd heard of the assassination of John Kennedy. And so all of the kids were filling up the hallways crying and lamenting and hugging and thinking of ourselves, not anyone else. But, we shared things like weddings and lots of funerals and lots of babies. And when you said that about watching Law and Order all night, I remember that she loved horror movies. The gorier, the better, because she and Brandon would go to the movies a lot and see all of this. And I said, how can you stand that? She said, at that time, God had not invented the word technology. She said, I love the special effects. She loved to see how they made blood and, and it was so disgusting. But I would sit on the phone and listen for hours because she just came alive. She just loved that stuff. So anyway, she was my go-to person because I was never kind and loving like Jerry. She was so patient, and she would just try to help me find the good in all of this. I would call and complain and lament when I was hurt, when I was angry, whatever. So before my husband Lemmy and Maureen and Michael came along, she was just my very, very closest everything. And she was pragmatic. She knew that when my babies came along, that she knew I was terrified, and she would spend hours on the phone explaining things. And finally, she would just get tired, and she'd say, just look at it as one day out of your life, And other times when I would call, and she would say this over and over and over for decades when I was complaining, when I was frustrated, she'd say, you know what? It's just another fiber in the tablecloth of life. She said that hundreds of times. I'm forgetting a lot of things that I wanted to say, but she was just my go-to person, and the sweetness. And we spent hours talking about Christian Science and Christianity, and we learned a lot from each other. We gave and gave, and when my babies were born, Jerry came and left her own. They were already in school, and she came and stayed with us. And here I was when Michael was born. I was a few weeks away from graduating university, and I was breastfeeding and trying to read Melville, and Jerry came and took care of us and took care of Maureen because Maureen needed attention. So he just gave and gave and gave. And I will just always carry her. Enough.
Thank you. All right. I was waiting for that one too. I love you.
You are doing a good job. I'm so proud of you. Well, my notes that I left at home were this long, so I guess it's a good thing. First of all, I want to thank everybody because my sister was loved more than I'll ever know. But I want to start out without crying if I can. She had the most wonderful 2.5 years of her life, and then I was born. And she did not know. I have a picture of her, it may have come up, I don't know, sitting there holding me, going, why? Why did you have to do this? She and I couldn't be more different just in general. And we went about the most fun things. We were raised with wonderful parents who taught us kindness and respect and friendship and love. And even though we didn't have the same Christian upbringing, we loved God, and we were taught to be good people. And she was the best. She was much better than I was. And I can remember my grandfather used to call me Too. And I thought, as I've been speculating in these last couple of weeks, and I looked back and I thought, I remember when my sister wanted anything, I always wanted it too. And I learned so much from her, and I really did follow her. When she went to Girl Scouts and had this great group of people that went on this trip, I wanted to have a great Girl Scout troop too. And I created it with my daughter. And my husband and I took our trip, not to Europe, but we went to Yellowstone. And I thought, see, I can do it too. And she went into Job's Daughters, and of course I followed her. And she became Honored Queen. And I went, I want to be Honored Queen too. And sure enough, I followed her footsteps and I went up. She was a lifeguard. I wanted to be a lifeguard, and I took the class. I was too skinny and frail to save anybody, but I could swim really good and I looked pretty, so I taught swimming lessons. She really did lead me, and I didn't even realize it. How much she guided me through life. And when Kelly announced that she had passed away on Facebook, my jaw just dropped from all of the responses that came in. I thought we were going to be the four of us standing out throwing petals into the lake, saying goodbye to my sister. And then I went, oh, Kelly, she was much more loved than I ever knew. This love goes so far back, and just listening to your stories, I kind of think I missed out on a lot. I was kind of into myself a lot, and I miss her tremendously now. The last 3 years was tough, but it was our faith that got us together, that kept us together. We also, like Margaret said, we dealt with Christian Science and Christianity. But she was such an adventurer. She loved to explore and find out how things happened and how they got here and what did they do to get there. And we would share. I'd say, did you know in the Bible it says this? No. And we'd look on it, we'd look it up, we'd go on Wikipedia and all everywhere we could find to find answers to things that, that bonded us in these last 3 years that she struggled so much. But anyways, I love her. I will always love her. And I miss her tremendously. And I'm so glad that all of you love her too. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Anyone else out there?
So, if
if you even met Juge even one day, you know that I don't think she had an unkind bone in her body. And I only heard this story. As far as I know, she never said a bad word in her life, except for one story with my mother. So when she was, I know she got angry, but you would never know it. And the Juge is and was one of the toughest and the strongest women I've ever met in my life. And she had a lot of pain, she had a lot of loss. She was hurt a lot, and she lost a lot. But her heart was bigger than all of that, and she taught us, and she brought us up to love no matter what. And like I said, I don't know that I ever saw her angry, but she would say, "Oh, that just makes me so mad." And so it started out with Kelly being the first baby. And then when it was my turn to have a baby, the Juge and Kelly were calling me. I was in the hospital already every 5 minutes. Is the baby there yet? Is it time? Is it time? Is it time? And then in my deepest pain and my deepest loss, it was the Juge who called me. And she said, "I'm not angry at anybody, but I sure am mad about this." And she would call me every night, and she would pray for me. She'd pray for my family. And she never liked to talk about being sick. That part of her faith. So even when she was struggling, always find where I'm not going to declare it. I'm not going to declare it. But when my heart was breaking, she said, "You declare that, and I will hold it for you. And then we're going to give it to God. Because we don't know what we're going to do, but I'm going to talk to him, and he'll tell me what to do for you." And even when it was her turn and she was struggling, it was still, "Don't you worry about me. Oh, honey girl, I love you so much. You are okay." So, Kelly, Jocelyn, Evan, all of you, the Juge is with us, always, in our hearts. And we're going to be okay, because the Juge lived, and she's in our lives forever.
Thank you. Thank you for saying those things. Is there anybody else who feels so inclined to share? Yes, please.
Well, I'm little Ricky. And as much as I love having the honor of not being able to pronounce Jerry, Juji was maybe mine. The Juge is an honor that goes to my cousin, Brandon. Because my cousins, Kelly and Brandon, they were the ones I looked up to, my sister and I both. We would spend springtime on the way down to a family trip, and one of the highlights was stopping in and seeing the family. And I did hear about times where, Kelly, Brandon, they made the Juge a little upset. And there wasn't just the Juge, there was also the tooth, which apparently was the defining feature when she was mad at you. That's all they would stare at. I never got to see that side. I only got to see the side that we all remember the most. I got to sit with Steve and Gail, and we were just kind of talking. And when I was really little, I don't know my age, but we were down in Hemet and running between the two backyards, and I was barefoot and found my first bee sting, and it was the worst thing in the world. I was crying. I was hysterical. I came in looking for remedy, sympathy, anything I can get, and the ladies were preparing a meal for us. They were cutting up some vegetables, and I remember my aunt saying, "Hey, come here, sit here." They sat me on the countertop, and she said, "I'm going to make it go away. I'm going to put an onion on it." Apparently, an onion is magical. I had no idea because I was so mesmerized that the minute that onion was on my foot, my bee sting was gone. I was joking and laughing, and then within probably minutes, I was back out and running and playing with the rest of. Well, I wasn't running and playing with them. They were probably just bored of me. I was the little nuisance that nobody liked back then. But that's Jerry. That's the Juge. She would find time to make everything right. She would enter into every conversation, and every time she would see you, whether it be weeks, days, months, or years, it was the highlight. Looking through our photos as they were picked out, there's not a single photo where there's not a smile. And as you said, there was a lot of hardship. There was a lot of adversity that my aunt and our Juge had. But she found life in everyone else. Every photo, there's somebody in there. And every photo, there's a smile. Every memory I have, there's a smile. And I think that knowing that what time we did have, that time will be carried over because I can still see the same smile in you. I can see it in your brother. I can see it in you. And so it's hard because there's so much time lost, but it's a blessing that we have so much to go forward with because she has imprinted her fingerprint on all of us. So thank you for inviting us, and we will miss her. We love her, and it's just glad I get to see her and all of you.
I don't think she ever believes me when I say it. But looking at all those beautiful pictures of my grandma, especially in her younger years too, I see my beautiful mom. And she's been so strong through all of this. And I just wanted to acknowledge her because she won't come up here and say it. So I'll say it for her. We thank you all so much for loving her. And no matter what capacity you loved her, we just are so grateful. And it's so amazing to see how many people love her as much as we do. All right, is anyone else inclined to come up here? If not, I'm willing to close it out here, but I want to invite anyone up here. Are we all good? Oh, yay. Thank you.
My name is Terry, and I grew up with Kelly. So Jerry was my mom's bestest friend, and I think we had a group of people that, like, we called the volleyball group. So we had a group of families, and every Saturday afternoon we'd go play volleyball or kickball. I don't remember, but then afterward we'd have a big potluck. So my mom and Jerry were in that group, and then another woman who's Kathleen, but I kind of think your mom was the mom my mom was closest to. And you mentioned Girl Scouts. I did Girl Scouts, and my mom and Jerry were our leaders. And it was fun, but I think it was crazy fun because of Jerry. My mom knew how to have fun, but hearing stories again, I was like, I think Jerry might have been why it was crazy fun. And yeah, it was so much fun. They did brownies, and I moved on to juniors, whatever. And it just sucked because my mom and Jerry weren't my leaders, so I just quit. But anyway, and yeah, and I just acknowledge you yourself have so much loss. So it's interesting to think, because my parents died when I was 16, so my mom and Jerry didn't have lots of time together, but just that you were there for when my mama was gone. So I'm like, I have to be there when your mama's gone. So yeah, just love you. But yeah, and you have greatest hair in this room. It's gorgeous. But anyway, yeah, so, and even this morning I was telling my daughter, I was like, I think of Jerry as my age, and you're still in high school, because we haven't been close since about high school, because, I had to move away when my parents gone. But, yeah, so it's just kind of still weird that you have kids, and I do too, but it's like you guys are stuck in time. But anyway, so yeah, and Marco, when you're talking about the one more fiber, I don't remember, but I know my mom struggled sometimes, I think, with depression, so I bet Jerry was right there goading her along. But anyway, that's why I love Jerry too. Yeah.
While any of you find some more courage to come up and say something, I just thought of something, well, maybe not just, but I didn't have it written down. But I know that she is smiling so big right now. Not only because you all are here, but because she's got everyone up there. She's got everyone up there. And I know that all of you know how much she missed my uncle, Brandon, tremendously. And the first thing I thought of when my mom called me was, she's back with him. And I just know everyone up there is just smiling right now. And I hope that it brings you as much comfort as it brings me. Because it's not easy. It's really not. Is there anyone else? Before my tears fall out of my eyes. Yeah, come on.
Hey everyone. Hi, I'm Hannah. I've known Jerry my whole life. She was best friends with my mom for the longest time. So for 30 years, she's been such a constant presence in my life. Basically, I was closer to her than my own grandparents. Everything that's been said about her, about what she brought to this family and everyone who loved her, so true. It resonates with me. She was the most kind, generous, loving person. I remember as a kid, I loved her so much. We were on this trip to Hawaii, and my mom got so jealous because I never let my mom brush my hair. I would scream and get so fussy as a kid. I was 6 for context. This wasn't recent. My mom is the most gentle human on the planet, but when Jerry brushed my hair, I sat like an angel, and she was just so sweet to me, which I really appreciated. As an adult, I got to know her in her more funny capacity, where she was sarcastic, she was sassy, cracking jokes all the time, and it was such a pleasure to get to know that part of her and to get to share it throughout my adult life. Yeah, she is lovely, and I'm very, very grateful that she brought our families together. I mean, she took care of me as a kid, passed that torch on to Kelly, who I spent a lot of formative years with your family, and I'm very, very grateful for the love that she brought both of us. So, yeah, love you guys.
Huh? Okay, great. All right. I'm still leaving the mic open. Anyone? I think if everyone feels okay. Last thing I'm going to say before I close this out. Whether she was Jerry, Jerilyn, Mom, Sister, Juji, Juji Wooge, Wooji Face, whatever she was to you, just let that resonate today. Feel full of her love today, as again, I know she is smiling down on all of us. Thank you all for being here. My family to yours. Thank you. Lastly, we wanted to let you know the family is going to a no-host dinner at the Old Spaghetti Factory after this gathering at 5 p.m. Please feel free to join us if you'd like. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Jocelyn.
We have so many cookies. And there's drinks, there's coffee, tea, and water, if I'm not mistaken. We'll probably be playing the slideshow a couple more times just so everyone gets to really take it all in. But please, just right over in this other room, feel free to take any snacks, and then hopefully we'll see you at dinner. Thank you, family.